Hey, Jen Pachichi here, talking about if being anxious can become a habit. I first heard this just about a week ago, and it really changed my mind, the way my mind works. I was listening to the 10% Happier podcast, an older episode with Judson Brewer as the guest, and he studies this. He's a psychiatrist, and he talked about how anxiety can literally become a habit, like smoking or like obsessively playing video games or checking your phone. So, of course, I immediately put the book on hold at the library because that's how I do things. And so I have been reading the book this weekend. And I just wanted to talk to you about some of the stuff. I haven't finished the book, but some of the stuff from the book that I found really helpful that you might also find helpful. So, one, yes, I know I posed this as a question. Can being anxious become a habit? Yes, it can absolutely become a habit. And one of the first things he suggests to do in the book is map out your habit loops. And it's funny, I read a book a long time ago about habit loops, and it never really stuck with me, but the way he describes it, makes a lot of sense to me. So it's the trigger, the behavior, and then the result. So the trigger, I wrote some down that I was going to share with you. So for me, I have a lot of different triggers for anxiety. One trigger for me is I start thinking about my business and what I should. I'm putting that in quotes. He actually talks about shoulding all over yourself, which of course I've heard a million times before, but this really put it in perspective for me. I start thinking about how much I should get done. And just side note, my daughter should be in school or heading to school in a moment, but she is not feeling well. So she is home today. So this is the perfect time for me to be working through this anxiety loop because I likely won't get what I felt like I should be getting done today. So the trigger is I start thinking about like all the things I should be doing. The behavior is I start to get nervous. I feel that like nervous feeling in my stomach. I start to push myself. And then the result is anxiety, which for me, I just feel it all through here. It's almost like there's sandpaper in my chest. And also a feeling of like more thoughts of like, I'm never enough. I'm never enough. So, again, trigger, behavior, and result. Another one for me would be like when my daughter, so there are lots of kids in my neighborhood. My daughter is she'll be 9 in the spring. And she goes out to play with kids, which I want for her. Like, I don't want her to have a life that is constantly overseen by parents every single second of the day. There's a lot out there showing that kids struggle with anxiety and depression and all that because they don't feel independent and they don't feel like they can do things for themselves. So for me, a trigger would be if she's outside playing, my behavior is I start thinking about all the things that could go wrong. I definitely have that kind of mind. And then the result is anxiety. So those are just 2 examples. I wrote down 6. One of them too, this is interesting. One of my triggers is open, unfocused time. Like on the weekend when we don't have any plans, I start thinking, my behavior is like nervousness, sense of uncertainty, not sure what to do next. The book goes into a lot of the brain science because, he's a psychiatrist and studies this stuff. But basically like the prefrontal cortex, new part of your brain, like doesn't do well with uncertainty. So just like spits out all of these things that could happen, tries to fill in the blank. So I definitely see that with me. So the trigger is that open and unfocused time. The behavior, I just start thinking of all like, again, what we should be doing, feeling nervous. And then the result is more anxiety. So once you start mapping out and noticing those habit loops, that alone helped me so much just over the weekend being like, oh, yeah, I see how that triggered anxiety. And then he moves on with more steps in the book, and I haven't completed all of them. Another, like the second sort of step is feeling that feeling and asking yourself, like, is this helping me? And noticing it's bringing awareness, which I find so interesting. I heard him on a mindfulness meditation podcast, essentially, and he studies mindfulness. And it's so interesting because I'm so interested in mindfulness, being present, being in the moment, connecting with that still part of yourself. And this goes right along with that, where you can't notice your habit loops and you can't bring awareness to them unless you start to be aware. Like you have to come into the present moment to notice you're anxious, to back up to see like what was the trigger, what behavior triggered this. And then the next step, being present, is noticing how you feel like physically, emotionally, and is it actually rewarding to be anxious? And you might be like, well, no, it's not rewarding. But unless you teach your brain and like actually notice, oh, this behavior is not rewarding. It is not rewarding for me to stress the whole time my daughter is out playing. It is not rewarding for me to be stressed out when we have open, unfocused time. It's not helpful at all for me to get stressed out about how much I have to do in my business, because it's not even really true. None of it's really true. So, yes, anxiety can become a habit. I hope just knowing that can help you feel less anxious, because there's not something like horribly wrong with you. It's just, it becomes a habit. And if you don't break the habit and become conscious of the habit, it just continues. 2, you can map out your habit loops with the trigger, the behavior, and then the result. And then 4, 3, wherever I am, start paying attention to what that result feels like, and know, like, you can look inside and start becoming aware and questioning, is this really helping me? Is this behavior actually rewarding? Am I getting out of this what my brain told me I would? So that is this Monday's video. I hope you enjoyed it. And I do have a free meditation that you can sign up for if you want to download that. And I hope you have a great week.